So I'm Fraser, the MD of MotorVise, and I'm sat here with Nick Coyle, our recently appointed Sales Director. Nick brings a huge amount of experience with him, former Divisional Director with a few Mercedes sites under you. Just give us a couple of minutes on your background, Nick, and what you're hoping to bring to us here at MotorVise.
Well, certainly without trying to bore everybody to death, yes, served 40 years overall in automotive retail, with largely prestige brands, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, a little bit of Jaguar, but also some volume brands too. So quite a broad level of expertise, I guess, over a number of different brands and demographics. And what I hope to bring to MotorVise is to try and put that experience to good use in engaging with MotorVise's clients, which obviously span the whole of the UK and across many different automotive brands, and try and bring some of that expertise to bear on people's issues and problems within the industry.
Okay. Today we're going to talk about quarter three. It's been a really interesting time for car dealers, and I kind of want to start by casting our minds back to the end of March, sitting in my office listening to Boris announcing that car dealerships had to shut, and I think it would be fair to say it's probably been the most unprecedented and most unpredictable period. You know, we're fairly routine in the motor industry. We know quarter one's our big quarter. We know how to rev up. So we know quarter two's quieter, and then quarter three's a big one. And we kind of almost know what to expect. I feel like over the last 6 months, I've absolutely not had any idea what to expect, and not really known. And if I sit back and I think about how I felt when I kind of saw Boris announcing that car dealerships had to shut, you know, I felt really, at times, very concerned about how we would survive as a business. You know, how was I going to meet payroll at the end of every month? How many months could I meet payroll for? You know, I think of my people and my responsibility as the owner of the business to them and the mortgages that they have to pay. You know, I found myself in a very difficult place on occasions. You know, I was due probably £300,000 worth of cash in the month of April, where, you know, invoices that were due into us from dealers, and we got about £1,500 of it in. So sat there at the end of April, it was a difficult period for us, and you know, I'm laughing about it now because obviously there was the C-Bills loan scheme that came in, and lots of other things that the government's done to pump cash into businesses, which in the end has left us in actually a very strong position. But I had huge fear at times, and it was difficult.
Yeah, I think that fear and that anxiety was probably shared by everybody who had a stake in motor retail right across the industry. We know that the manufacturers pulled back on building cars because they all furloughed. Car retailers, many kept somebody in the business through furlough so that they were able to meet whatever very limited demand they were seeing, be that on either sales or on after sales, particularly staying open for essential workers. But of course, when we came back on the 1st of June, it was a tentative start, but I think very quickly things started to build, and quarter three, frankly, could have been a hell of a lot worse.
Yeah. The one thing that I was shocked about more than anything was the massive difference in the pack. So those dealers that were achieving, for many weeks during lockdown, an order take at around 60 to 80% of their normal order take. So the showrooms were shut. Many dealers had their most skilled people selling, so their sales managers staying in the business, selling. One particular dealer group that really impresses me, largely based in Scotland, achieving up to 80% of their normal order take during lockdown. Clearly had a huge job to do in terms of deliveries in June. And the thing I was quite fascinated by was June, dealers did really well because they kept their costs down. They had good levels of deliveries and invoicing to do if they'd taken orders during the lockdown period, and pent-up demand if they didn't take orders during the lockdown period, which saw the used cars in particular come back really fast in June. And then by the end of July, I had dealer groups, £250 million dealer groups that were telling me that they'd made back all of their losses of Q1 by the end of the July period. So the one thing that we get to see, and I feel, so honoured to be able to see this, is we get to see the performance across many, many businesses. And when I was running a small dealer group, I had a very limited view, just the dealerships that I could see. But we're obviously working with hundreds of car dealerships across the country and now around the world. The one thing we get to see is how the people are performing. And it was dramatic to see some dealers. I spoke to one director of a large-ish dealer group, middle of the pack, and they said to me that when they come back from lockdown and as they moved into July, they're going to run the business lean to the bone, and they're going to stop all training because anybody that they've got in the business that needs training, they're going to get rid of them anyway. And those that don't need training, well, we're going to keep them and run with them. And it's really interesting because that was the approach of some businesses. Yet other businesses brought everybody back, kept the quality of the sale, kept the profit per unit, kept the add-on products going, and the dramatic differences that we've seen. And actually, as we got towards the end of September, those dealers that didn't bring people back are really starting to suffer with profitability. Yet the others that brought everyone back, got spending money on marketing, I'm really starting to see continue to drive that profitability for us.
It does seem as well that those dealers who retained that positive mindset, they brought people back, the message was very upbeat. Very early on they could see good returns on used cars. That's where all the activity seemed to be to begin with. People were perhaps expressing anxiety about new cars and the market for September particularly. But I think as people gradually came back out of lockdown, and not just people within our industry, but people across the country, some of the confidence seemed to start to return, new car activity improved. But I think that came largely off the back of those dealer groups, dealerships, who embraced the opportunity, saw it as a positive, as you say, got behind the message of the plate change for the month, engaged in strong promotional activities, seem to have had the best results. I mean, we've certainly seen the evidence of that.
I mean, one particular brand I can think of that has not done well in the NFDA survey and really struggled. I see a lot of dealers within that brand not making money, not selling cars, not achieving targets. Yet I see other dealers that are absolutely having it away. They've got the head around the campaign. The big thing that we're seeing more and more of is fragmentation of dealers' targets. So manufacturers seem to be getting dealers focused on selling low CO2 emission vehicles. So, really got to focus on that. And dealer targets are really driving the performance to deliver the low CO2 targets the manufacturers need. They're kind of shoving that up the line towards our dealers. But also we're seeing certain groups targeting with their dealers on certain groups of brands, targeting their dealers on model mix. So it's not only low CO2, but they want high spec. So the dealers that have strong sales teams that can influence customers to be buying more environmentally friendly vehicles and higher spec vehicles, those are the dealer groups right now that are absolutely having it away and seeing month on month record breaking profits. Those that don't have the resource in the sales team, those that are not able to influence the people that are in their showrooms to buy the models that help them achieve their targets and actually have a positive effect on the environment, those are the dealer groups that are falling away now. It really is all about the skill of the sales team to kind of show the customer the benefits of low CO2 vehicles and higher spec vehicles. And as I say, the groups that I know that are very good at that are having absolute month on month record profits, and we're predicting September is going to be fantastic.
Yeah, I think I would endorse that. My experience would be that I've talked to people within retail who have had their sales team halved because of what was perceived to be the need for redundancy. As a consequence of that, the people that are left remaining have had to cover for the opportunities that their colleagues would have enjoyed. So on the face of it, they've got more customers to talk to and therefore more sales to achieve, except the company's chosen to pay them half the commission because they've got more opportunity and therefore it's coming a bit easier to them. But of course, all that additional activity means that the people that remain are working 14-hour days, they're absolutely shattered, they're being heavily put upon and are potentially thinking about leaving that business to move elsewhere because the pressure's too great.
But the impact of the people that are in those types of business aren't seeing the impact of it because the quality of the sale goes through the floor. So we have seen in businesses that are run in that way, so it's super lean, we've seen FCA compliance drop. We're undertaking a round of mystery shops with the big dealers that work with us where we do all of their compliance for them. And the dealers that have gone down that route, the compliance has dropped. Their finance penetration has dropped. Their add-on product penetration has dropped. So, they're on a bit of a vanity trip because, turnover is vanity, but profit is sanity. I've got dealers that are doing the job properly, that have brought people back, that are achieving £1,800 a unit on new cars, consistently between £1,400 and £1,600 on used, and actually seeing used profit per unit go up significantly, but only where they've brought back their full sales teams to enable them to do that. And where they've just held off and had this lean to the bone kind of approach, there is a place for that to some extent, but obviously there comes a point in time where you begin to have a negative effect on your teams, you then get the staff turn, etc.
I mean, you're right, and some of our customers actually have reported back to us that they need to be more creative in the way they manage their cost base, and where headcount is a critical element of that. Frankly, car sales executives are not your most expensive cost, but there are other ways of overcoming that headcount cost burden than redundancy. But I think given that there are inquiries out there, some of our clients have said to us that their concern isn't whether or not they can cover the cost base so much as whether or not they can meet the demand that they're currently seeing from inquiries. Yeah. And inquiry management seems to be a big concern on some of the bigger groups' concerns. And that's simply because they're going through this unprecedented time of lots of people coming through the door in a limited period of time off the back of lockdown. Those dealers that cut back on bodies have probably lost opportunities that they're never going to see come back.
So obviously we're now kind of at the end of quarter three. I'm predicting that we're going to see the hockey stick curve. I actually think we're going to see quite a lot of registration activity at the end of this month. And as I look forward into quarter four, I think we're going to see a slight drop in demand. I think we're going to have to stimulate the market. I think dealers are going to have to activate their databases that a lot haven't touched since early in the year, and start to drive footfall because new car production's coming through. Yes, the UK hasn't seen a huge growth in production. In fact, it's seen a decline in production for the year. But overall, worldwide, car manufacturing plants are back on track. And I think we're going to see significant volumes of new cars, a slight drop-off in used car demand. As those new cars start to come through, we're going to see part exchanges coming back into the used car market. What's going to happen to the used car values? Don't know. I don't think we'll see a crash. What do you think?
I think we're probably likely to see what we see most years, which is that we will see dealers starting to reduce stocks going into the end of the fourth quarter. And start of quarter one, people probably jumping back into the market to restock again. It happens every year because people want to get the balance sheet looking as clean as they can. I don't think there is as much available stock out there as would ordinarily be the case at the end of a quarter three. I expect there to be a certain amount of pre-registration at the end of September, which will probably then elevate stocks generally across a lot of different brands. There'll be more demonstrators coming back into the market that weren't coming through in quarter two. So I think you're right. I think generally the activity is strong. I think prices will remain stable. I don't see a huge spike in values, and I don't see it falling through the floor either. I think it's probably reached a level and it's going to achieve a little bit of stability.
So looking at quarter four, I guess I would say the key thing to do is to be prepared. I wonder whether quarter four is going to be normal. Is it going to be the usual slower period, Or do you think the new car production that we're seeing coming through now is going to kind of force things a little bit in quarter four? Could it be a much stronger quarter four than we've seen historically? What are your thoughts, Nick?
I think you've got a point that manufacturers are probably back at full tilt. Certainly the European manufacturers are back at full tilt. Given that that's the case, those cars are coming, so that inventory is going to build. I don't see manufacturers sitting back on the laurels. I think given that they don't have any further lockdowns across the continent, production will continue. If that happens, then manufacturers will be obliged to stimulate the market in some way. And given that we'll be in a difficult quarter, it's quarter four, it's always quite tough, I think dealers will be looking to manufacturers to come up with some financial incentives to bring buyers back into the market. I think that will be an essential. Given that that's likely to happen, dealers need to be ready for that. And dealers need to ensure that they've got all of their productive staff back, those people that can sell, those people that can repair cars, those people that can generate revenue. Those people I think are essential. Cost, obviously, is something that everybody needs to be mindful of. So you need to review costs on an ongoing basis. I think everybody would ordinarily do that anyway. But non-essential costs need to go. Everybody needs to be tightening the belt, maximising the revenue and minimising their costs to the best of their ability. But that means being involved in all sorts of activity with your customers. Database is key. Talk to your customers, give them a reason to come and talk to you in the showroom. Make sure you're promoting whatever financial incentives exist, and maintain those levels of energy and motivation. It's going to be tough for everybody, but everybody's going to perform better if they've got the right mindset.
I think one of my big concerns is of another national lockdown. If I was to give my kind of my number one thoughts on that, I guess certainly in the northeast we've had a lockdown. Obviously on our doorstep here, we're based in North Yorkshire in Swaledale. We're probably 5 miles from the River Tees, and once you get north of that, you're into the lockdown area. So key things if you are in that environment, or if you go into lockdown, is communicate with your customers. Communicate with your staff, make sure they know that the car dealerships are still open, and make sure that we are engaging with our customers in an electronic format to keep engagement going, and ensuring that you can continue to do business in a safe manner. When people are locked down, they've got very limited things that they can spend money on. People are highly likely to want to transact within dealerships and buy cars, and I really think that how we manage that as a dealer-based business is going to be critical to how successful we are in quarter four. Go on.
People aren't saying that the transmission is happening even in pubs or restaurants necessarily. Transmissions tend to occur with people that you're very close to. Car dealerships, I think, as an example of managing your way through a difficult period, have done an outstanding job. We visited dozens and dozens of dealerships over the quarter three period where we've been running events, and it's an absolute standout performance from dealers making the environment as safe as it can possibly be. People have followed the rules and the regulations avidly. I've never felt unsafe in any of the businesses that we've been into whilst we've been running events. So I think dealers can continue to do that, and will continue to hopefully get that message across to customers that of all the places you could visit, a car dealership is probably one of the safest places you could be, certainly safer than a supermarket.
Well, exactly. I was going to say, supermarkets, you're handling lots of goods and things.
Exactly.
In a car dealership with lots of space, we've got screens on the desk, everybody's masked up, and sanitisation stations at the end, and many of them have got the heat-seeking cameras in the entrance to the doors.
Absolutely.
So I really can't think of a safer place to be. So I should imagine that car dealers will be one of the last places that will be stopped from trading if things do progress from where we are now into a worse situation. So, all I would say is good luck to all of our car dealers out there. I hope you have a fantastic quarter four. It's not going to be like a normal quarter four. Hoping new cars will be much busier. Used cars will continue to progress in the same way that they have. And get your database activated. Get stuck into your customers. Get your staff back. Communicate. Keep people motivated. You never know. I have a little prediction, a sneaky feeling Q4 could be far better than it is normally.
I agree. Yeah, I would concur with that, but I would also say to everybody, it's going to be a difficult quarter, of course. Stay positive, communicate, talk to us. We are here to help. So if there's anything we can do for you, pick up the phone and talk to us. We'd love to hear from you.
Thank you.